is developers that say they have a tract of land that's zoned, and they want to put a subdivision, right, of our modular units. And, their thesis right now, at least the folks that we're speaking to, is that, okay, someone who's living downtown Toronto is paying crazy amount of rent. They're getting a shoebox. They're only going to work 2 days a week. Maybe they would want to live further out, maybe on the 115 in a house, and then commute a few days a week.
Welcome to Real Talk with Gary. If you are listening to this show, that means you are either searching or ready to make a financial change in your life. This show is not only about real estate investing, but also the importance of mindset and the roadmap to a better, healthier life. Learn the daily routines of successful entrepreneurs and the latest market strategies and trends to stay ahead of the curve. Ready for some down-to-earth, north of the border Canadian talk? Here's your host, Gary Hibbert.
All right, welcome back. And today I've got Jacob Sofer. He is the CEO of Metrosuite, and they do prefab garden suites. And the reason why I wanted to have him on the show today is because of everything that's happening with Bill 23 and the race to build more homes in Toronto, Durham region, Peterborough. We have a housing crisis. And so what do we touch on? Touch on the garden suites and the site preparation required to build these garden suites. And also, is there a difference in speed when it comes to these prefabs and the traditional way of creating garden suites? What's the cost? And we also dive into the Housing Accelerator Fund and whether or not, if you're going ahead and you're doing a garden suite in the backyard, should you go ahead and put a basement in? So lots of great topics. And I think this is a very important time in the real estate market to be understanding this stuff, right? So we really kind of dive deep into this. And now we obviously have now recently heard this week that inflation now is up to 4%, which has gone up now, 0.7%. And they're contributing a large part of that because of gas. And I believe gas has gone up to 4.6%. So inflation is going up. And they've said this before, right? I think you got to pay attention to their language, is that inflation is going to be sticky. So what I'll do is I want to maybe share a few things with you in regards to how do you stay ahead of inflation. I realized back in 2008, even when inflation was at 2%, that my raise at work wasn't even going to outpace it. So here are a couple of different things you can do. And what I'm also seeing investors do today. So one is, and specifically out in Peterborough, I'm seeing a lot of investors now doing student rentals and look, I'm big on real estate. So they're doing student rentals. They're specifically looking more for 5 bedrooms, maybe even properties that you can add a 6th bedroom in it. Okay, that's one. Number 2, I'm seeing a lot more private lending happening. I'm doing that myself. Now you may say, well, look, I don't have the cash to either buy a property, Gary, or to lend my money out. What I'm also seeing is people using their lines of credits or HELOCs, and they're using good debt to make a profit on. Now, be careful to not over leverage. So I definitely advise you to talk to an expert. You can reach out to either Neil D'Souza or Darlene, who is part of my team at Deep Pockets. All right. And there's also tax benefits to lending your money out as well too. All right. So essentially what you're doing is you're leveraging money to make money. Okay. The other thing you can do, what I see some people do, is they are using, maybe they got a pool in the backyard, or maybe they got a hot tub and they're using Swimly and they're renting that thing out for like $50 a day, $75 a day, whatever it may be. And that can bring some additional income. You guys may know that my daughter is now down in Mexico. So she's got her car sitting in my driveway. So, hey, maybe I can rent it out in Turo, right? I'm looking into that right now. I can bring in an extra 40, 50, $100 a day, depending on the type of car that you've got. And the other thing as well, too, and I'll wrap it up with this, is now is a good time, especially if you're a real estate investor and your cash flow has diminished a lot because of where interest rates have gone. You may now want to look at active income, right? So I'm now looking more on my real estate side of my business. I'm also brought on some new agents on my team, right? So don't just rely on cash flow. And I think over the last couple of years, that's what people have kind of focused on and just relying too heavily on that. So you got to have some active income. And then maybe one last one as well too, which I'm also doing a lot of, is focusing more on building my businesses out, right? Putting new procedures in place, growing it, and not working so much in my business, but working more on my business. So listen, those are a couple of different tips that you can use to hopefully help you outpace inflation if inflation is having a big impact on you. All right. And listen, if you need any help on this or guidance, myself, Darlene, my team, we're here to help. And I know it's a difficult time for a lot of families. And listen, we've had some issues and things that we've had to change in our business as well too. So, we're not immune to it by any means. And listen, I'm done rambling. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a review, whether you're listening to it on Spotify or iTunes. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. And if there's anybody that you'd love for me to interview, reach out. I'm more than happy to do it. And with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Take care. Are you looking to create generational wealth and get one step closer to financial freedom? If the answer is yes, then Better Mortgage Select is the brokerage for you. Better Mortgage Select has helped more real estate investors achieve financial freedom than any other mortgage brokerage in Canada. They are expert financial planning consultants that allow investors to grow their portfolio and have a unique way of helping clients navigate through the different banks and lending options available. Contact them today for a free consultation and get started on what could be a life-changing journey. Don't just get a mortgage, get a better mortgage. Jacob, how you doing, brother?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. Welcome to the studio. I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I met you for the first time. See if we can get you closer to that mic there. Met you for the first time, about a month ago at your facility there in, is it Mark? No, where was it again?
Richmond Hill.
In Richmond Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got a pretty cool little setup there. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. And, I was just telling my dad, who actually is business partners with me and has some stuff in Peterborough. We took a look at some of your listings and looks great. You got a lot of good stuff up there. Awesome. Yeah.
So let's talk about Metrosuite, what you guys do, garden suites. You got lots of stuff going on. There's obviously, I want to talk about the different changes that's been happening in the market, Bill 23. And before we get into it though, I think what intrigued me was your background, what your dad has done. He's done a lot of big things, and you obviously must have seen, learned, and saw what he was doing, and that must have rubbed off on you. Can we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So my family is been in real estate for about 20 or so years now. It's my dad who started TVM Group, which is our parent company. So they focus on condo development, owning apartments, rehabilitation of sort of heritage buildings and affordable units. So I've been following sort of his footsteps and seeing how he operates and the good things he's doing. And this opportunity came up and here we are.
Right. Yeah. So he's done a lot of things, apartment buildings and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So
crazy stuff.
Okay. So then you guys, who started Metrosuite? Was that your idea? Was it your dad's idea? How did that all get started?
Yeah. So it was something, it was a sort of brainstorming session. I had sort of liked the idea of modular construction. He had sort of pointed me in the direction of all these new bylaws that were coming out in the city of Toronto with these garden suites and whatnot. Sort of one thing led to another, and we wanted to see, okay, can modular construction be paired with these backyard homes that are now being allowed? Okay.
And so Metrosuite started when? What year?
In early 2022.
Oh, so you guys are new.
We're new.
Okay.
We're new. Yeah.
Right. New with obviously knowledge of how this whole business works.
Yes. I mean, TVM's our parent company. So we have lots of experience sort of coming through that. Okay. So new, but old at the same time.
TVM is?
The real estate development company that my family runs.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So then you saw what was happening. You obviously then heard about Bill 23 as well too, but I mean, Bill 23 came afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
and Bill 23, just so your listeners are aware, is the provincial passing of these bylaws that allow for these backyard homes, which we did talk about a little bit.
Let's dive into that so people understand that, because you obviously probably would have a good understanding of Bill 23, where it is right now. Is it actually even completed now, or are there still things that are getting passed, at the provincial level or at the municipal level? Yeah,
no, great question. So how it works is this bill, which is at the provincial level, was given royal assent, I think in November of 2022, so last year. And that bill said that all municipalities within the province must allow for a backyard home. So they basically said to municipalities, you can either allow for a triplex, so 3 units in a main home, or 2 units in the main home and 1 in the back. So now they've given municipalities about a year to sort of come through with these bylaws, and now we're starting to see that, which we were just talking about with Pickering, just introducing their bylaws. Peterborough, it's happening in the Greater Golden Horseshoe.
Yeah. Now, I thought I heard up to 4 units in some of these single family dwellings. And then a 5th unit if you've got like a laneway in the back, up to 5 units on one property. Have you heard that?
Yeah. So that is the case in Toronto. So garden suites were passed last year in Toronto. This Bill 23 was given royal assent, and then since then, I think in May, Toronto also passed a multiplex bylaw. So now in Toronto specifically, which may or may not be the case in the future with these other cities of passing a multiplex bylaw, you're allowed to put 4 units in the main home and 1 in the rear. So 5 total, which is huge.
So is that separate from Bill 23?
Separate, yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not part of Bill 23.
It's not part of Bill 23.
And that has been passed in Toronto.
Yes.
Okay, so you can do 4 units in a semi-detached or a detached home or a townhouse. Can you do that in a townhouse as well?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to get back to you on that, but I do believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's nuts.
And that allows a lot of investors now that had to maybe potentially move out of the city to buy investment properties to now potentially come back into the city, where now you can chop up a semi-detached, a detached home, maybe a townhome. We'll have to take a look at that and confirm that, to get 4 units out of it, potentially even another unit in the backyard. What are you seeing in regards to rents for, say, a studio, a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom? Do you kind of have the numbers on that
for rents?
Yeah, for rents in Toronto.
Yeah, well, I mean, rents are just bananas.
That's a good word.
Yeah, they're crazy. I mean, it's good and bad, right? I mean, these are these are people that are paying rent. So we're, from an investor perspective, these units, the biggest thing is that they're not subject to rent control. That's the biggest thing. So because a new unit is built post November 15, 2018, it's not subject to rent control. So they can be changed with the market rate, which is huge, right? Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think some of the numbers, at least that I'm seeing from studios, are 18 to 2,000. Then you get into the 1-bedrooms. These units, and if you kind of take a look at it from, say, if you're able to get 4 units in one property, one of our investors is currently doing that.
Oh, wow.
Right now in Toronto. And by the time you're done, you're getting between like 8 to 10,000 just out of that one house. Like, it's just wild.
Wow.
And, then you add that extra laneway in the back. Now, obviously, look, this is going to cost money to develop this. You're probably looking anywhere from 300,000 to 400,000, maybe more. But the income potential is huge.
It's huge, yeah. And I think rates paused on the 6th, I think it was, or last week.
Yep. Thank God.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I don't know if I'm going to thank Tiff McCloud, but thank God.
Well, it's been a crazy ride so far. Hopefully we're at the top of this hiking cycle. And if that's the case, and when rates do eventually come down, because they have to, things will be good for these sort of this situation, densifying. It will really help a lot with investors of looking to buy properties and do these conversions or existing properties.
Right. Now, starting in 2022, and where interest rates have gone, how has that impacted your business? Or are you guys still moving along with no issues?
Yeah. So I think when we first started, investors were sort of our bread and butter and was the big focus. I think that's definitely changed since we started. Our main focus now, believe it or not, is multi-gen. So situation where, so we just gave a presentation in Etobicoke, to about 25 or 30 homeowners. So those homeowners, for example, own 50-foot wide lots by, say, 120. They're living in their house, right? They're older. They don't want to necessarily go to a long-term care home. So either they could move into this unit in the back and have sort of other family members live in their main house, or they could have adult children live in the back. Maybe if they're traveling, they could have this unit in the back and sort of rent out the main house, which still may make sense in some certain cases.
Yeah.
So there's actually still a lot going on, believe it or not. People need to live somewhere.
You know what? And that's a good point. And I think we should spend a little bit of time on that, because the multi-generation idea is something that helps a lot of families that, well, look, I'll give you an example. My son right now, or my daughter, they're in their 20s. What are they buying?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's so difficult for them to buy a property. So my son recently moved out. We bought a property in Whitby back in like 2009. And that allows him, because we did that, for him to be able to move into that property. But for him now, making, I'm not going to go into his income, but anyways, you need to be making like almost 150,000 just to even get into some of these starter homes.
Yeah.
Right. And so then now you need two couples to be making that kind of money.
Yeah.
And so multi-generational homes is a great idea, where now, the mother and the father, they can live in one of the units. The kids can maybe live in the laneway in the back. Auntie who just came over from Europe or wherever, she can move into another unit. Yeah. And so you're kind of getting these families kind of where they're staying closer together.
Yeah, no,
because of affordability.
It's a really great example with your son. I was recently in Portugal on a vacation. Over there and in Europe, for example, they live. There's like multiple floors in these homes, right? And each generation lives on a floor. So you don't necessarily buy a home there. You sort of move floors, right? Mm. I think that's kind of the winds of change that we're seeing in Canada. But time will tell with that.
And that's a good point, because I guarantee you're probably moving on to something here, which I think is true, is that 30, 40 years from now, people will look back and like, what? You guys were able to buy homes?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you guys, it's again, like Manhattan. You wouldn't go to Manhattan and say this is unfair.
Right.
It's like, well, this is just the price of the homes.
Right.
If you want to live in Manhattan, you got to pay whatever it is, $1.5 million, $2 million to get this little 600 square foot condo.
Or less.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? I think the big thing that we're seeing right now is the difference between the actual cost of the land and income. So I think there's a qualification part of the equation that will change with interest rates. But yeah, there's a lot of change happening.
Yeah. So let's get into the modular homes now. So why modular as opposed to the traditional just going into the backyard and building that unit and pouring your concrete and all that stuff? What's the difference? Is there a cost savings?
Yeah. So modular construction is really interesting. There is a big time savings, first of all, with modular construction, because you can build the home at the same time as you can do the site work. So you're doing both of those things at the same time. In normal construction, you're doing one thing at a time after the other. So that's a big savings point. The cost savings, I think it's in certain cases there may be cost savings. It really depends on the finishes. So if you're going with our product, which has Corian stone countertops and nice vinyl flooring, nice engineered wood siding, the cost is going to be maybe comparable with a stick build. So I think that will change over time. But modular really is the future. It's a big change.
Yeah. And so by doing it that way, what would you say that you're saving on time? Okay, I can tell you from Metrosuite's perspective. Yeah. So I call you up and say, hey, look, I'm ready to rock and roll. Come check out my property. Okay, Gary, yep, you got enough room back there. Okay, bang, we're ready to rock.
So from signing an agreement, we go immediately for building permit. And then we say 4 to 6 months from receiving a building permit, that's when you get your home.
Okay. And then the traditional way, what is normal? About a year?
I mean,
I think it's probably about a year. I know they say shorter, but I've seen some of our investors, well, particularly one of our investors, go through it, and it's a year plus.
You tell me. I mean, you have a lot of properties, right?
It is a year plus.
Yeah,
right.
It's crazy. So modular construction, it's the time savings that's first and foremost, and that time savings is money. Okay, because let's say you save 6 months on a project, right? You're able to then charge now 6 months worth of rent that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
Especially for these projects, if they're tight or whatnot,
for sure,
budget wise. So it's a big thing.
Right. Can we get into cost?
Yeah, sure. Our pricing, we're very transparent. It's on our website. It's on the front page of our website. So we have 2 products. Our 1-bed home, which is 480 square feet, and it includes the entire project. Okay. $349,000 plus HST. And then our 2-bed home, which is 600 square feet, is $389,000 plus HST. Both of those prices, they're all inclusive. Site work, so landscaping, foundation, utility connections, the home, which is delivered, fully built, pulling the permits, everything's included in that cost, and it's fixed. It's not a budget, it's a fixed cost.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So there's no hidden fees, there's no gotcha.
No.
There's no creep around the corner. Hey, there's an extra, 10,000.
No.
Right? Because those hurt. Those hurt a lot of times,
I'm
right?
sure. Yeah. No. So investors want certainty, and I'm sure you can speak to this with your mentees and the work that you've done. Certainty is very important. So that's something that we really aim to offer.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Because anytime, we get quotes from a contractor and they're like, hey, Gary, look, they said it's going to be X amount. I'm like, yeah, add on an extra 10 for each unit.
Right.
Right. So this is good to know that.
Or 10 to 15%.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that's good to know. Now, where do you guys go? What's your location? Are you in Toronto? Are you in Peterborough, Belleville? Like, what cities do you cover?
Wherever the zoning allows for. Right now,
that's a good point.
Our focus is in Toronto, and that's just where activity is happening. Etobicoke, Scarborough. We're seeing some activity in Peterborough, so we're working with the Canadian Mental Health Association in Peterborough right now. But in Pickering, with the new passing of these bylaws on September 5th or 6th, and now in Peterborough and in Clarington, it just opens up this market.
Let's talk about this. What are these new bylaws that have passed in Pickering and Clarington? Is it right across Durham, or is it particular cities?
So bear with me because I'm not.
That's fine.
Yeah, particular on the details. But so Peterborough just recently allowed for these bylaws. Clarington already.
Break it down. So what have they allowed? For
these backyard homes.
Okay, so Pickering now is allowing, which means what? They can do 2 units in the main and 1 in the back. So is it 3 altogether?
That's right.
Okay, so not as much as Toronto.
That's right. So, I mean, that may change in the future.
Yep.
But when we say bylaws that have been approved, it basically means cities allowing backyard homes.
Got it. Okay. And so also in Clarington as well too?
Yes.
Are there lot size requirements?
There are lot size requirements. So there is specifics per municipality, but they're, in our opinion, they're quite relaxed. I would say all but maybe Oshawa. There's not much burden from a parking perspective in, say, Peterborough or Pickering. Pickering, for example, allows up to 150 square meters if you qualify with other considerations involved, which is a huge house.
So you're saying right now in Clarington, I can just go ahead and build an additional dwelling in the backyard, depending on lot size, and also parking or not parking is required with parking?
I think so. Certain municipalities, they'll have different zones. Like Peterborough will have zone 1, 2, and 3, depending on how close you are to the core.
Got it.
And they tier their parking based off that. I'm not sure with Clarington, but generally from what we've seen, Clarington is a great place to build a home. But to answer your question, a backyard home, to answer your question, if you own a single family property or you're looking to buy one and there's enough space in the back, which we would review free of charge, then you can go directly for a building permit and then start building.
Got it.
Okay. Before this whole process of Bill 23 and these bylaws were sort of enacted, you would have had to go through probably a zoning amendment, which is a crazy process, or a minor variance if you're lucky. And the crux of it is consult with neighbors. So the neighbors would have an opinion on this project because they could come and sort of raise a red flag. In this case, it's very prescriptive. If you qualify, you're going to get the building permit. And that's huge.
Now, what do you recommend? Somebody's listening to this and they live in, one of these municipalities, whether it be Pickering or Oshawa or Clarington, and they're trying to figure this out. Can they just call themselves or can they just reach out to you and say, hey, look, I'm busy. I got kids, soccer and hockey. Can you do this for me? Reach out to the city and determine whether or not I qualify based on my zoning or location.
Absolutely. We do that completely free of charge. So if you go onto our website and there's a button that says, does my property qualify? You click this, you fill out a very small form, and one of our team members will get back to you within 24 to 48 business hours.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. So you got people on standby by the phones waiting.
We do.
Yeah.
We got a whole call center. Right, everyone's waiting for the call. No, but we're here to help.
Yeah. Awesome. And so what do you think the future is of these modular homes? Do you think that this is the way of the future, that you're going to start seeing these things pop up a lot more as opposed to the traditional building?
From a modular perspective? Look, we're biased. I'm biased. I believe that modular is the way. What really sparked my sort of interest in this was reading a landmark McKinsey consulting report that was done, I think, in 2019. And they're saying that modular construction is the future. And I believe that as well. We're already starting to see that. And really from a labor perspective, we don't have enough people. So we need to get the industry needs to get much more efficient in how it builds buildings.
Right. Yeah, I really like the way that modular home looked when I came to your studio.
Yeah, you did.
It's just nice. It's clean. For somebody, whether they're single or they've got a partner, it's a great, nice little starter place to live.
Thanks.
Like, that's all you need.
Thanks
I'm thinking
so
about
much.
now, like my kids are they're moving out. One's moved out. I got one more left to go. And I'm like, okay, I've got this big home. Do I really need all this space?
Right.
And then we're also taking a look at, hey, maybe if we do move, maybe we find something with a little bit more land where now you can build potentially.
Right.
Now, here's a question. Can you do multiple modular homes or is it only one? Because then you also have to tie into the plumbing and all that. How does that work? So there's those two questions: multiple modular homes, and then how does that work tying into the plumbing and the electrical and all that?
Yeah. So great questions. Right now, we go by what the bylaws allow for. So that's normally one home in your backyard. At this point, that may change.
Right.
To answer your second question, the utilities are connected from the main home into the garden suite. Okay. So it's very simple. It's one trench into the main house, and it takes hydro, incoming water, sewage, and cable Wi-Fi. And that work is included in our scope of work and our cost as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any benefit in building down, doing a basement?
I think on these, so with these,
because you guys are just doing slab on grade.
we are. It's concrete foundation wall, but yes, absolutely. So your question on basements. Basements are tricky with these smaller projects because it's harder to spread those sort of big costs over the small square footage. So generally, especially from an investor perspective, folks haven't been doing basements. I would say too that a lot of municipalities actually offer a maximum cap the amount of bedrooms at 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and one dweller per backyard home. So there's not a huge benefit at this point in time in doing a basement. That may change as well in the future because a lot of things are happening.
Right. So it might be a good idea to build the basement, put maybe like a separate entrance on the side.
Yeah.
Because who knows, maybe in the future, now obviously it's going to cost you a bit more. Like how much would it cost to dig out and pour concrete and make a basement? What are you looking at?
I mean, it's very hard to say off the cuff, but
Right.
anywhere from 30 to 50%, more of the project cost. But again, that would be site specific.
Right. Because the way the city is going, that could be something 10 years down the road. We're like, man, I should have just dug this goddamn hole.
No, look, it's a great idea. I think someone actually did it in Oshawa, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They built a basement with a separate entrance just in case that changes. So it's a great idea.
Right. And then we're not promoting to go out and rent it out illegally, people. Okay. We're just saying for future use.
Yeah, definitely.
Make sure we're very clear on that, right?
Disclosure, Gary disclosure.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And what else are you guys kind of focusing on? Is this kind of like just the bread and butter, the modular homes? Is there anything else that you're looking at? Being an entrepreneur, you're always like, okay, well, where's the future of my business going? What else are you guys looking at?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we're sort of quietly looking at from a long-term perspective is developers that say they have a tract of land that's zoned and they want to put a subdivision, right, of our modular units. And, their thesis right now, at least the folks that we're speaking to, is that, okay, someone who's living downtown Toronto is paying crazy amount of rent. They're getting a shoebox.
Mm-hmm.
They're only going to work 2 days a week. Maybe they would want to live further out, maybe on the 115 in a house, and then commute a few days a week. And this way they have their own house and they can come into work. So subdivisions or working with sort of larger developers is something that we're exploring as well.
Yeah. What about the, everybody's talking about the housing crisis, not enough homes out there. Is there anything that you see your company doing to help or address that?
I think what we're trying to do is offer people the ability to build housing at a low cost. Okay. And that's not necessarily the cost that we or the industry charges. It's really the idea of building on land that you already have, right? So this land is free, quote unquote, because you own it. So I think what these bylaws do is allow for folks to maximize their living space on properties they already own.
Okay.
So that I think we're trying to help people build living space at a lower cost than they otherwise would.
What are some of the challenges that you guys are experiencing right now? Or pushback from the city? I mean, obviously, it looks like the city has opened up a lot for you guys, which has been great over the last, 6 to 8 months. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the challenges that you're seeing right now with what you guys do?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of these municipalities, they have different processes of going for building permits. Okay, so Toronto, for example, is a great example. They're very prescriptive. You meet X, Y, Z, ABC, you're in. With some municipalities, say Peterborough or a few, sort of smaller communities, it's a less prescriptive process. Doesn't mean that folks at these municipalities are wonderful people to speak to, but it's not yet built for scale. So it's more of a in-person, high-touch process. I think that's a trouble that we're sort of working through. But these
so to get these permits is taking time.
Yes. I would say though these planning departments, they're really working hard to work with folks though. So that they are improving, but there is a
bottleneck,
a bottleneck, and a difference between sort of a Toronto and a Peterborough or a Belleville, for example.
Which is faster. So Toronto's slow, Peterborough's a little bit faster.
It's the opposite.
Quicker. Oh,
no,
really?
Toronto, from what we've been seeing in the data, is faster than say a municipality with a less prescriptive process.
And I guess because they've probably been doing it longer, they obviously maybe have a little bit larger of a budget. And so now Peterborough, because Peterborough only recently amended one of their bylaws. I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was 2018 to allow that second unit outside of their particular downtown core.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons why myself and a lot of our investors moved out to Peterborough in 2017 because we knew that bylaw was changing.
Yeah.
So I think where I'm going with this is that, when it's new to a city, there's pain points, right? And just trying to get that nice, smooth system going, that takes some time, right?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think that your investment philosophy, I really appreciate. Because I remember when we were speaking at the showroom, you've really focused on Peterborough, and I commend you for that because I think Peterborough is a really unique example where prices are lower comparative to other cities, but the rents are just crazy. So I think your moves your focus on Peterborough, it just shows that you're farsighted, which I think is great.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Look, it's here's the thing that I've learned over the years is that I like boring real estate. I don't like when it's exciting. I don't like when prices take off 20, 30% a year.
Right.
That's not normal.
Right.
I want my typical boring real estate where I can go in, I can do some home inspections, I can get my financing done, as opposed to putting an offer in on 20 properties. And that's one of the things that I've done over the years is starting in Whitby, then went to Oshawa, Curtis, Bowmanville, Peterborough, and even kind of at Lindsay as well too. Wow. We've also done a little bit out in some of the tertiary markets like Bob Cajun and and the numbers still make sense.
Wow.
Right. But you obviously have to be aware that, can you crunch your numbers, do some ads, make sure that you've got a market out there for the product that you're buying, right? Now, let's kind of jump back into these modular homes and build 23 and add in additional units. What about plumbing? You got a lot more shit and piss going down these pipelines. Has anybody,
to put it lightly,
has anybody addressed this? Is this potentially because you imagine now a whole street now of single family homes being turned into 3, 4, 5 units?
Yeah.
Has anybody talked about that?
Well, look, it's a very valid point. I think they've obviously looked at the infrastructure and said, okay, if this many homes are built within this time period, we're okay. I'm guessing, but it's a valid concern. Right now, you have more people in a denser area, more things are going to happen. There's more pull on the grid, the electrical grid, right? There's more congestion maybe in traffic. I do think this sort of approach of densifying cities versus say sprawl, it is environmentally friendly. You're not having as many people relying on cars, right? You can use the TTC or bikes. bike lanes. So I think these are challenges that cities will face, but I do believe that it's the right approach.
Right. And I would also assume as well too, not just on the plumbing issue, but also on power that you just touched on. Typically you're looking at 200 amps.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, I don't know. What are you going to pull into some of these properties now? 300-400?
So in City of Toronto, 200 amps is the minimum for that's going to be in the main home, because that now feeds the main home and the garden suite. It may be different in different municipalities. But I want to say one thing. I think this is an interesting strategy to work with you, okay? There is something called the Housing Accelerator Fund. So we talked a little bit about this.
Yeah, explain that to me.
Okay. So the Housing Accelerator Fund, from my understanding, is a federal fund that incentivizes municipalities to densify, among other things. Okay. What I think might be an interesting investment strategy in terms of purchasing properties is saying, okay, what is a municipality that is likely to pass certain bylaws that would allow me to add more units in the future? And then sort of taking a step back and saying, okay, I should focus my time, money, and effort on these locations first and sort of triage. So, I'll give an example. I just read somewhere that the City of London is just endorsed or is in the process of passing this fourplex bylaw that Toronto has. So if you buy property, I'm not giving any investment advice. I'm just giving my opinion, my personal opinion. If you buy property, say in London, ahead of this curve, in a few years when things change, you could be better off. So I think that's something that your listeners should definitely at least look into, is just sort of look a little bit ahead and see what's coming down the pipeline.
Well, how do you find out more information about this Housing Accelerator Fund?
I just Google Housing Accelerator Fund.
Okay. And what different municipalities have this ability to what? Is it like a loan, or is it a grant, or like?
Yeah. So my understanding is that it's a grant. It's grant money. So in municipalities apply for this money, and in return they change certain bylaws and certain things to help housing become more affordable, which is the
so the municipality is applying for it from the provincial government, from the federal government.
Yes.
So it's going from federal down to
federal money to municipal.
Yeah. And then how does it get into the hands of the investor? So you've got to now look into that to see if there's any, slush fund for an investor to build these modular homes. Like how does that? I'm not sure if I fully understand that.
Okay, so the money that's passed from the federal government goes to the municipal as an incentive, right? In return, the municipality, among other things, passes maybe these bylaws to allow for more densification on existing single-family homes. Investors, from my understanding, don't get this grant money, but what they might get is a property that they've bought ahead of maybe these changes that now is that property now maybe allows for more densification than what they originally purchased
for. And so as an investor, somebody who's savvy, what you should be looking at then is a property that's maybe got a little bit more land size, that's going to allow for higher and best use because of
these changes that may come.
Housing Accelerator Fund that is coming from the federal government down to the municipal government will then allow them to make some additional changes to their bylaws, which allow for additional housing down the future.
That's right.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I mean, for a lot of the clients that we work with, even out in Peterborough, and the good thing with Peterborough is there's so many properties that have large lots.
Yeah, big lots.
Where they're 50 by 150. I'm grab them.
Yeah.
Grab more land. If you can get more land, get it, because changes do come down the pipeline. And all of a sudden you're happy that you've got this larger lot.
Yeah. No, Peterborough's a great market. It's a great market.
I love it.
Yeah.
And when you see the price of homes where they are right now, I got listings right now, they're just sitting there. And there's opportunity out there. I think you're going to see some additional opportunity come up in the next few months as well too.
Yeah.
But there are great properties that are sitting there on the market. And if you're, don't just be waiting for these deals to land in your lap. Go and create them. You got to create deals.
Yeah.
Especially take a look at properties that have been sitting in the market for 90 days, 100 days.
Yeah.
they need to sell.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I saw a few of your listings, like where can you buy a house, that's for 400 or 500,000. That's an hour or so away from the city. That's in a nice town.
Yeah.
Peterborough. I mean, it's a great market. It's a really great market.
I think so as well too. And what I love the most about Peterborough, so when we were looking at it, we were looking at Peterborough or going to Coburg. I'm glad we chose Peterborough. And what I liked about it is the fact that it's a gateway into cottage country,
right?
And into these other little small tertiary markets,
right?
Number two, I hate the 401.
Yeah,
I hate the highway.
You have a 407 pass?
I do.
Nice.
But I mean, there's so many different ways to get into Peterborough. You don't have to take the 115. You don't have to take 35. You don't have to take the 407. You can take just so many different ways to get into Peterborough.
Yeah.
That's why I love it. But
yeah.
you can get in and out of that city quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And the 407 just connected to the 115 now, right?
Yeah. It's connected a few years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that's like building like another artery.
Yeah.
That's a huge artery.
Huge.
Right.
Huge.
Exactly. And so imagine what's going to happen along that,
totally.
that artery, right? You're already seeing it in Whitby, in Oshawa, especially in Oshawa. You're seeing it huge in Oshawa. You're seeing it out in Bowmanville.
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think these modular homes that you guys are building and doing, I think that's going to add some additional wealth and opportunity as well too for a lot of investors that really take a look at what you guys are doing.
Thanks so much. One thing we didn't talk about is that we're a Tarion licensed builder. So folks that work with us, they actually have a 7-year warranty.
That's beautiful.
You're familiar with Tarion?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just for your listeners that aren't, Tarion is a not-for-profit government agency that provides warranty through builders to new home purchasers.
Yeah. No, Tarion's really good. So then you guys follow the whole prescription, I guess you can call it, where you come back after your 1 year and then your 2 year. Because I think don't they have that, or is that more of a builder requirement?
Sorry, explain. What?
When you buy like a new home.
Yeah.
I might be talking about two different things. I'm not familiar with the whole building thing there. But anyways, after you've been there for 6 months, the builder comes back in and does your nail pops and does this and does that. And then a year later, and then I think you got like a 2 year. And so does that fall within Tarion, or is that more of a builder thing? How does that work? Do you know?
So just building off what you're saying, Tarion has sort of a tiered 7-year warranty system.
Yeah.
So the first year, everything's covered. And then year 2, it scales down a bit. And then up to year 7, I think it's like major structural defects. But basically,
your house has to be falling over.
Yeah. Tipping over on the side.
Yeah.
But basically, Tarion just offers like this. It's a comfort, right? There's a lot of fly-by-nighters out there. And I think, having certainty that you have that warranty for 7 years just shows that, your builder's not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's a great organization.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know what? That's actually a good point. That I think is additional benefit for what you guys are doing, having that Tarion warranty. Everybody wants warranty.
Yeah.
Everybody wants some form of a kind of, like a guarantee or something to say, hey, look, you just built this modular home. It's not going to fall over in a year or two.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Yeah, no, thanks.
What else do you guys have that allows you to stand out from some of these other companies that are building these modular homes?
Yeah. One, we have a showroom with an actual model home, right? Mm-hmm. Which you thankfully came by.
And you guys build right there as well too? I can't remember. Was there anything in the back? I think we got into the warehouse or anything like that.
Yeah,
no?
so it's an industrial space right now. It's our showroom with our office,
Yeah.
And then the actual model home. That model home, I think we talked about this, that was actually stick built on site because the garage is not big enough to actually bring the 2 modules into place. So that was sort of our...
Right. And so for that modular home, there's actually, you guys build them in 2 pieces and bring them together. So when you're taking them to the site, you got 2 different pieces?
That's right. So it's a great point. And I think we talked about this on site. Remember that back wall of the kitchen where, right there, I was saying, here's where they connect. So there's 2 modules that are actually built in the factory, right? So for our 1 bed, they're 20 feet long by 12 feet wide. And there's 2 of them. That module actually comes on a flatbed truck, okay? And then when on delivery day, they come to site, there's a big crane. The crane picks up each module, lifts it over the house, and places it gently onto the foundation. And then there's finishing work. And
do you ever drop one in somebody's house?
Dropping on someone's house, they'd have insurance, but it would not be fun.
Okay, but you haven't had that situation.
No.
Okay, good. You got good crane operators.
That's right.
I mean, that's pretty much the only way to get it back into the backyard. You got to crane it over the house.
Yeah. So it's been great. You know, I'm a huge fan of what you do with your mentees and with all of your investments. So I think it's very exciting. I'm very excited.
You know what? I just thought of something. You should come out to our property tour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've got one that we're going to be doing. We've got one this month, and we've got one, I think, in November. So we got 2 or 3 of them coming up.
Yeah,
I think it'd be good to have you there.
Yeah, that'd
so
be
at least
great.
that way now, you could answer some questions from some of the investors that are there, saying, "Hey, look, we can put a modular home in this particular backyard, or take a look at the actual, zoning or wherever it is. Because can you actually do them in all properties? You probably can. Like, I mean, like a townhouse. I don't know. Like, you got to take a look into them, obviously, right? And check with the city in regards to which homes can allow a modular.
Most can be allowed.
Okay. We should have you there. I think we should.
It'd be great. I'd love to be there.
Okay, cool. So you're coming next weekend. That's how we do business.
Yeah, no, it's great. I actually heard good things, but you're all over the internet, so it's not hard to find you.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, that means hopefully I'm doing good things. All right. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Anything else we need to cover that we didn't cover?
Yeah, I think the deposit structure. I think you asked sort of where we stand out.
Yep.
So this is how our deposit structure works. So we take a $60,000 deposit on signing of the agreement. Okay. $60,000 is the maximum amount that Tarion covers from an insurance perspective. So that money is covered by Tarion. Okay. That's insured, that money.
Okay.
And then the second deposit, nothing happens until the home is about to be delivered from our factory. At that point, the balance is paid into trust with a lawyer. Okay. So those are the 2 deposits. When the home is delivered, the balance, all but $25,000 is released to Metrosuite. And then the remaining 25 is released when we get occupancy certificate. Okay. So what we try to accomplish with those 2 sort of parts is, one, we really want to lower the risk, right, for the investor from the insurance covering and the funds held in trust. And then second, we withheld $25,000 so that you as the investor know that we're with you to the very end. We're not going anywhere until you get your home and you're happy. So that's the way that our deposit structure
that actually brought up another question now that I just thought of, is financing. How does that work?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, do you assist with them going to the bank, or they got to go to the bank on their own? Like, how do they mortgage this?
Yeah. So financing is something that we aspirationally are looking to offer at some point in the future. Right now, folks are financing these purchases through cash or through a home equity line of credit.
Okay.
The home equity line of credit is interesting. So versus, say, like a mortgage where you would be paying, you'd be amortizing principal and interest. In this case, you would just pay interest, and then you can convert that to a mortgage when rates are more favorable.
Yeah. I wonder what that looks like from a refinance standpoint as well, too, and how the banks are going to be looking at this, because this is obviously something that's going to come down the pipeline.
Yeah.
And people are putting, $300,000-$400,000 into these modular homes. Are they going to appraise that property now at a proper value so that they can get some of these funds back? And maybe that's something we can talk about offline in regards to our private lending company, where we can maybe even assist some of these investors.
Oh, cool.
Right. With funding these modular homes.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
All right. Cool. Listen, man, we got lots of great ideas here, right? You're doing property tours. We're doing business together now.
It's all through the Gary brand, the Gary Hibbert brand.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Listen, this was good. It was educational. I appreciate you coming in and sharing what you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
Like the I like the structure. I like the setup. And I think this is the future of building homes, and especially with the challenges that our city's facing, right? And there's some big challenges right now. And so I think this will help out a lot. Anything else that you would like to add before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I think I just want to thank you again for having us on and having me on. And I'm looking forward to the property tour.
Awesome. If people want to learn more about you, how can they find you? Website, Instagram, Facebook, where are you at?
www.metrosuite.ca. Should be in the showroom.
We'll put it in the show notes.
The show notes.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, listen, Jacob, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in, and we'll do this again soon.
Thanks so much.
All right. Do you know what blockchain is? How about the difference between Bitcoin and crypto? After 15 years of explosive growth across the globe, it's important not to get left behind. We are currently in the mid-90s of the internet when it comes to adoption. Want to learn more? Make sure to reach out to onebitcoin.ca broker today. Whether you have basic security questions or you need help buying Bitcoin in a safe and convenient way, onebitcoin.ca is here for you. Get started today with Canada's Bitcoin partner, onebitcoin.ca.
Thanks for listening to today's show with Gary Hibbert. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with your host on Instagram @Gary Hibbert. Until next time, stay mindful and remember, you don't have to be great to start. Just start, and you'll be on the path to being great.